Hey guys, welcome back to Ultimate S&S. I hope everyone had a great weekend. So today we're going to be discussing, with this food shortage that we're seeing, does it make sense to harass the few farms that are actually being productive? I don't think that it is, but that's what our government is currently doing, not just on a federal level, but on state levels in liberal states. So here's a few articles for you. We're going to break some of these things down for you guys. It doesn't make sense to me why in the world our government is trying to take and basically they're trying to constrict or restrict what the Amish communities are putting out in the open market for food and things like that. Understand this: there has never been a situation where any of the produce that is sold by the Amish at farmers markets or anything like that, where we've had E. coli outbreaks and stuff like that. That's all done in these factory settings from people not paying attention to what they're doing. And not only that, the way that the Amish take care of their land is they're constantly replenishing the soil for the next year's production. They understand what needs to be grown, when and where, and how it needs to be dealt with. But our government obviously is having some overstep issues when it comes to this, and even within these state levels, guys, you're noticing a lot of these liberal states. So there was one community where a Amish farmer was actually fined $250,000. For those who don't know how much, that's $250,000, and they threatened to give him 5 years in jail simply because they had a stand up in front of their property selling their produce without actually having the licensing and stuff like that. But understand, here in the United States of America, we have a constitutional right to grow our own food. We also have the right to live off of our lands and to sell our proceeds and things like that. And not once has there ever been an outbreak of E. coli poisoning or any of these other types of issues that we have, salmonella and stuff like that, that happens with these big factory type deals where they're bringing all this produce in. They're growing organic. It's good for the soil. It's good for the people that consume the food. So why would they do that? Well, understand money talks. So when you have people like Bill Gates buying up all the farming area, and he's not really producing any food with that stuff, but his point is to basically to outmode the farmer and make it so everybody's reliant upon the government, or actually upon himself, and he pays the government to make sure that that happens. And I believe that that's what we're actually seeing happen, folks. Here's a couple more of them articles for you to read over. So my suggestion, my recommendation to you guys is, a lot of these farming communities, these Amish farmers and stuff, you can get a lot of information from them on how they grow. So you need to look at a sustainable source of food for yourselves. You need to start growing your own food, but you also need to buy as much food as you can. And it does not hurt to go and help out these local farmers and even the Amish community as well, guys. Any money you put in them goes back into the land, which is going to give them a higher production to next year. They don't have to worry about fertilizer coming from over in Europe. They don't have to worry about all these issues that we seem to be having with getting the fertilizer that we need because they grow their own stuff over there. And everything that they grow ends up coming back to a situation where it's a source of nutrition for what's going to grow next year, whether it's their chickens, their turkeys, or whatever the situation is, guys. It's a full circle deal. You talk about wanting clean stuff. So one of the big issues that they're facing right now is, obviously, Amish communities have been around a while, and they start building up these subdivisions and stuff in the area, and then people want to start complaining about the smells of the animals, and people are saying, well, they need to do something about that smell. Well, for anyone who's ever kept chickens, they stink. They do. Quail, they stink to a certain degree. Now, if you start talking on large production scales, yes, it starts to stink. Then they're spraying the fields and things like that. These are city folk moving to a rural community, then they want to complain about the rural attributes of what's actually done out there. Go back to the city, get out of the rural areas if that's what you're going to do. People need to wake up and realize, if you're not getting prepared, you're not getting food, you're not growing your own food, and you're not getting sources for your water sources and things figured out now, you're going to have a very hard time here next year. I know there's a lot of people who like to discard and just brush it off like it ain't no thing. But that is not what the truth of the situation is. Understand, the reason these people act that way is because they are programmed. They have been programmed. They're brainwashed. They're docile. They're puppets. They do whatever their master tells them, and they believe anything that's told to them. them. Unfortunately, that is a large percentage of America's. That's how we end up with people in office like we have now. So I do believe that I learned something today, though. I was watching some Sky News. For those who don't realize what that is, that's from Australia. And they actually do a lot of news stuff on what's happening here in America. And they've had a clip of Joe Biden up, and it's kind of an older clip, but it made a lot of sense, and I made sure I took notes. He said America could be described in one word, and that word is whatever that is. I don't know, but it's probably a nicer way of saying what I would describe America as right now. So America right now, as far as the new generation of workers and stuff, they're all entitled. They all think that they should be making manager wages. They have not done their time. They have not learned a job. They won't get off their phones. You know, that is a large percentage of the population, guys. And then in return for that, what they want to do is they know they're that way because they made them that way. The government made those people that way. They've been programmed. Like they're talking about wanting to make pre-K available for 3-year-olds. Well, 3-year-olds were not ever eligible for pre-K. That was right before kindergarten the year before. But they want to do it for 3-year-olds now. It's kind of weird, but understand it gives them an opportunity to get them in even younger so they can start to program that child. And most parents don't take the time to train their children in the ways that they should be trained. They are, by the time they hit high school or even middle school, really nowadays, they're morally bankrupt. They have absolutely no compassion about them. It's just it's a fivefold mess that you as the parent are responsible for raising your children, just as we as parents or we as adults, we as children that have elder parents, it is our responsibility to take care of our families. So what do we do with that? Well, what we do out here is we try to make sure that no one's going to go without food. So that means we're going out to stores, we're buying food, we're growing food out here. Yes, nobody wants to be outside in hot August working a garden, but I do it every day. The reason I do that every day because I love to have the fresh okra coming in. We actually have our next set of corn that's coming in. I'm looking about 3 weeks probably before that's ready. It's starting to tassel up, and we're going to start getting some pollen and stuff. So it's probably 3, maybe 4 weeks out, just really depending on the weather. So that's going to give us quite a bit more food, and a lot of that could get frozen and things like that as well. So that's going to help us out in the long run. And then with October now getting ready to move in, we have September and October coming up. I'm going to get planted around mid-September is kind of where I'm aiming for, because it takes about a week to 2 weeks for a lot of this stuff to sprout. And I'm going to actually get it back in the ground. And then by the time October is just about midway over, we're still going to have good temperatures. We won't have all the major storms that we've had in the past. Oh, by the way, for those who've been watching the hurricane season, this has been like a hit on nothing type of hurricane season so far. Knock on wood, do not want to jinx that because I'm loving it. Usually we've had at least a couple tropical storms in this area, major thunderstorms with some hurricanes hitting the East Coast or even up in the Gulf, guys. So I'm sure most of us are glad for this break. They're saying that this is odd because in the past 30 years, we are actually at the lowest named storm rating for any kind of a hurricane season in the past 30 years. So that's really saying something. So I know there's a lot of us that have been praying that, this is not going to be another bad season because we're trying to get set up. We're trying to get our production of our own food and stuff going on. And that really plays havoc on that when you start getting a lot of them storms. But if you can plan it right, you're going to get those good rains. And then you're going to end up not having those high winds on a tall crop. So that's kind of what we're looking at right now. You have to really watch it though, because right around the middle of October, it can get kind of ugly down here in this area here, but we'll just have to wait and see. They say we're in peak. We still haven't seen a tropical storm come up in our area. They had one that hit northern Mexico. Sounds like North Texas got quite a bit of rain. I don't think that was from that storm cell that was in the Gulf. I think that's something that moved in out of the north. And that's something we're looking at too, is there's cooler, wetter weather moving down. Even though it's not raining, it is cooler and it's a little bit wetter. So that's going to help, in my opinion. It's going to help maybe keep some of the stuff off of us. We just got to kind of keep an eye of it. There is a storm out in the Atlantic right now, and it is moving in a western northwestern direction. As of right now, they're saying it probably will not develop. We'll just have to keep an eye on it. Typically where those storms form up, they usually run up the East Coast, or they will cut off on into the Atlantic. So not too worried about it, but you definitely need to keep an eye on it. What we in this area in the Gulf Coast need to watch for is stuff that's forming just at the mouth of the Gulf of Mexico, guys. But I hope everyone's having a great day, man. again, get as much food as you can. Don't listen to the people that are programming you to fail. Understand, when you have people and politicians telling you the world is overpopulated, we got to figure something out, and all of a sudden it's like, oh no, there's no issues. You know, there's obviously an issue. Mainstream media may not want to cover that, and that's fine. There are other media sources that are out there. There are a lot of really good resources online, folks. That's where we try to get a lot of the information I give you. And if you're not getting to what you want on these Google search engines, and switch over to DuckDuckGo, it's a little less liberal, a little more conservative, and you're going to get to more of a better grounded news source. And they don't try to claim one side or the other, but they put all the information out. And when you start looking at what a politician tells you versus what an expert tells you versus what someone who actually has experience tells you, then you need to make your own decision. Because I learned a long time ago, just because someone is a college graduate with the expert title doesn't mean that they're an expert. Doesn't even mean that they're, mediocre qualified for their positions. So everyone have a wonderful day. We're going to hop off here.